Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting story. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story. Alright, there's lots of wind. Oelrichs School, we're going to listen to some history. We'll see how it goes. They have something about schools and railroads, and hopefully you'll be interested. Blue school, very fun. Alright. Welcome to Monday. This is a very special presentation. We're going to dedicate this to the gentleman you'll see presenting. I can say words, I really can. Because he passed recently. Him and Joe talked occasionally, and very interesting, fun guy to at least listen to. So hopefully you enjoy his presentation much as we did. Before all that, we're going to do a shout out. Are you ready? Here we go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, I support you. The shout out is for our friends. See what it is today. Joe has selected a camel race, and yes, I let him select the race because, no, he knew Rick and I did not, so I figured that was fair. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so we got She Stole, Mountain Inspiration, there's Peach, there's Lilies, there's Carnival, there's Alice, there's Bobby, there's Strong Mind, there's Travis, there's Rowdy, Frugal, there's New, let's see, there's Kate Eats, there's Lucia, there's Van and Jason and Dorlana, Eric, Mark, Alice, Hillbilly, Jason, New, there's Tuber, there's Groff, there's UG, let's see, there's Vay, was it going to be Vi? It is, Alright, so this is our winner, the Mrs. Vi. I want to say Vi, but I think she said it was Vay, because it was like they, but with a V, so that makes it Vay, or, yeah, Vay. So I apologize, however you pronounce it. I'm sure I'm butchering it, but I apologize. This one is about self-reliance. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment, and tries to, she raises quails and rabbits, which I think is fun. And so she's kind of got a little vlog here, about independence and self-sufficiency, self-reliance, and things like that. Got some shorts, which are fun. And, of course, she does some lives at Hangout and coffee. Generally, once a week or so, about every 10 days, it looks like. She does a coffee and chat and catch up with everybody. So that's fun. So check her out. She's at 1.31K, which is great and wonderful. So check her out if you're into that kind of thing. Like, share, comment, and enjoy the video. Also, I love that we can speak inside the school history conference. Oh, wow. Which way are we going? Hey, we have to go that way. Oh, no, wait. We have peoples.
I can get you to sign in. I know it's a little difficult when we're in there.
It wants to curl. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Like we were driving all over the back roads, just like trying to find the location of it. We think we might have saw it where it was, but yeah, we go through all these little tiny roads in all of western South Dakota.
So where are you from? Are you from around
Rapid.
Rapid.
Yeah. We started.
This is my historian. I know nothing. He knows.
Awesome.
He knows everything.
It's so fun though, isn't it?
Oh,
Learning
it's
little
awesome.
things. Yeah.
You know.
But you get somebody who's passionate, slightly passionate over here. It can be interesting. I usually don't pay attention.
You know, what wound up happening is that I started working for the census, and they would give me an address, and they said, "Well, we'll find this guy living out here on 127th, road." But then, we started seeing cemeteries and ghost towns and tourist spots. Oh yeah.
The food is just through that door.
And there's
Babe, you need one of these.
Oh yeah, I know that lady.
I think they have one there.
If not, a business card, and I'll contact you guys because we're always going down into Nebraska too.
What are we doing?
They've got the book, and they also have a USB drive of it.
I was going to say, they said the 30 was for electric, and I'm like, how are they doing electric?
Exactly.
So we have a USB drive, or I think I can email it to you, but not everybody's email would accept something that big.
Gotcha.
Or, and you never know if that's going to happen. So that's why I put them on.
No, USB works. We know how to work that. And if we don't, we'll just throw it to children. There's a big hefty book, and I'm sure there's at least a couple things in there you'd like.
Oh, yeah. I've got one book by
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Welcome to Oelrichs for the ones that didn't hear me the first time. We're going to get this thing started. Thank you all for showing up. And there's still plenty of pie and plenty of food, so if you want more, help yourself. Once again, the bathrooms are over there around the corner. We'd like to thank Mama's Cooking for providing it. Every year it seems like it gets better and better. Then I don't know if anybody noticed, but we had Trevor Cunningham and Joe Lowe supplied 2 tractors to hold up our sign out front. So I
didn't even notice the sign out front.
That's how I saw it. Which one to go to.
I know you saw it. I'm just saying, I didn't.
Just so you know, I don't see Trevor here, but I think it's a 42, 43, and then the GP tractor's a 1929. Along that wall on the bleachers is some pictures.
You need to look at that wall, the bleachers, if you haven't.
Some old stuff. Randy Pence died here a while ago, and so he's always donated things for us to things. So kind of in memory of him is what we put up. That's why that's there. And then if you look at the quilt, there's some gloves on there if you want to touch the quilt to read the names better. But we put that out every year from the 1927 ladies.
Wow.
Some group, I can't remember, I didn't write it down. And then real quick again on this wall hanging thing, we haven't been able to get it down to which year for sure, but in the 60s anyway. And a quick story on how we got that. I went over to get some books from the Smithwick School for Oelrichs, and this was laying out that it was headed for the dump, and I seen my granddad's Allen lumber yard there and got all excited. So make a very long story short, he just gave it to me, and so we hang that every year.
Well, very cool.
Then we also have Scott Lockwood here. If you don't mind standing up, Scott. He has written some books. If you ever want to know about Ardmore, South Dakota, he's the guy to do it. He's got Ardmore, and then through a chain of events, he got more stuff, so he wrote more Ardmore. And he also did a really good book on Doc Middleton, which is quite the colorful character that we all aspire to be. And and then out front there's some the graduating class. If you'd like to see from 29 to 2024, it's kind of neat to see the
29
different people and all who that is. And we only have one more thing.
I was wondering what those pictures were, but I didn't stop to look.
Oh, I don't know where Anita Cope is. Oh, there she is. But if you did not receive a newsletter 2 months ago, or a month ago, or somewhere in there, get a hold of one of us and we'll get your address. We're going to try putting out one every once in a while. We had really good response back from it. Very well written. Wanted to make sure. So she's our author. Then one more thing on the dinner. So we don't charge as of yet. We go with a free will donation. We just want to make sure everybody's full and happy and all of that. So dig deep. No. And then we've got a couple really interesting programs already set up for next year. Louis Twist is going to bring a program about the cows, how they got distributed. So next year we'll have more, and if there's anything else you guys would like to know about it. So I'll hurry up here. So first we'll have Rick Mills doing a thing on our train, oral from, talk about the schools, and then Katie's going to do a World War I veterans that are buried in their cemetery. There was a slug of them, but the ones that were in the cemetery is what she's going to talk about. But before we get started, and speaking of veterans, we're just very blessed and honored that you guys are all able to come, and we thank our military for that every day. And so if we could stand up and do our head, do our pledge of allegiance. Everybody ready? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, from liberty and justice for all.
Amen. And I think, Rick?
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being able to come down, and pretty much the wind kind of carried me down, so I got pretty good mileage from Hermosa this morning. So it was pretty good. And then they got down here and it's from the west, so that pretty much figures, because I got to go to Chadron right after this. But
Nice.
couple of things that I think maybe I can help you on a little bit. That banner back there, or that curtain, I want to tell you that thing is in such good shape. Hermosa had one in its hall, and we got it during the centennial back in '86. And we had one gal that knew when it was put up, and it looks an awful lot like that one. And she said that it was donated and put into our community hall in 1958. So that's pretty close to what you're hearing. So anyway, it's that same vintage kind of a look of everything. So I mean, it's pretty neat. I noticed that when I first came in. I wish ours was in that good a shape. But again, thank you so much. I tailored my speech a little bit today so that I wouldn't offend Peggy Sanders in any way. And I don't see her here, so I can't give her grief today. But Peggy's a good gal. I admire all the work she's done for Fall River County, and I've known her since, oh my gosh, back when we were both 4-H leaders together. But that's been a long time. But anyway, I appreciate James Wilmus inviting me down to be a part of this today. This is what it's all about. I mean, we are all volunteers in 1, 2, 20, 25 different organizations, and that's what it comes down to, and that's what keeps our communities together. But, and I'm speaking for all the things that I've done in Hermosa and in Hill City now with the State Railroad Museum and everything. It's a lot of fun, and it keeps all of our connections together. And of course, my big, I guess passion is the right word, is railroading. My granddad, my great uncle both worked for the Northwestern, and my great uncle, his name was Jim Ahern, and he was a surveyor on the Fremont, Elkhorn, Missouri Valley. So he was part of the crew that platted out Oelrichs and Buffalo Gap and Fairburn. And then by the time they got up to Rapid, he had decided that this is where he wanted to kind of stake his claim. So they homesteaded on Lower Battle Creek there east of Hermosa, or what became Hermosa. And the Millses have been stuck in the gumbo ever since. So I mean, it's a real interesting part of my life. And what I did today, and I knew we weren't going to have a lot of time, but what I did is I put together just some different shots of railroading in the West River, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but sometime I'll come down again sometime, or if you get to one of my other talks or something, we'll talk more about the Northwestern, all the history of it, also of the Burlington over through Ardmore and everything else, because both of them are, part of so many of our families' histories, and it's kind of fun to go back and take a look at some of these images. I'm going to run it from the computer here, and if you have any questions, right while I'm looking at a photo, or we're looking at a photo or whatever, can everybody see over here? If not, maybe just kind of move over here a little bit. And but anyway, ask them while you're thinking them. That way, neither one of us forget what the question is.
Maybe.
Let's see what's going on here, James. We froze up here.
It said no.
Can we
There we go.
can we treat this just?
You bet, you bet. Yeah, let's get this so everybody can see. Okay,
Can you guys still see?
I'm going to back up here a little so our cords
Can you
don't
still
get.
see? Is that better?
Is that good? Okay. Thanks much.
Yeah.
Basically, I took these images from a South Dakota Humanities talk that I have done over the last couple of years. It's been very popular, but I cut it back because today I knew we had a limited amount of time because we've got a lot of good talks and everything coming up. We talk about icons, and railroading, there's a lot of different icons involved with it, in most anything, in religion, in culture, other things. Icons can mean a lot of different things. When I think of icons with the railroad, this is kind of what came to mind to start with. These are all logos of companies that have been built and served in South Dakota. And of course, the one we recognize is the upper right, of course, the Chicago Northwestern. But right next to it is an icon you may not have ever seen. And that's the one that the Fremont Elkhorn Missouri Valley, which built through here in 1885, used a lot on their stationery and everything else. So with the Elkhead, and of course the Elkhorn Railroad was created down in Fremont, down along the Elkhorn River in northeastern Nebraska. So I mean, there's a lot of history, and there's a lot of detail and stories behind what railroads, were created in this area and all throughout the country. Go right to the left of that. A lot of you probably remember between 1996 and 2008, the Dakota, Minnesota, and Eastern operated through Oelrichs as well. Didn't happen for long, but you go down towards the bottom. The Union Pacific actually was the company that owned this track for about 11 months back in 1995-96. Canadian Pacific actually owned this track for a while. And now is the Rapid City Pier and Eastern. If you see their yellow and orange locomotives going through, that's the company that currently operates this track. So there's a lot of different companies, and it's interesting to note that since tracks were laid through here in 1885, there's been 6 different companies that have operated this track, which is it's kind of interesting when you think about it. I always use this one as kind of a start, even though this is in West River. This is one of the first photos I've ever run across of what is now a train in what is now South Dakota. This was taken 1873 on a glass plate negative down at the mighty location of Meckling, South Dakota. How many of you have ever been to Meckling? Wow, now we're talking. We've got enough to almost fill a hand here. It's a neat little place just east of Yankton. But this was at this point, this train was part of the Milwaukee Railroad, but its subsidiary name was the Dakota Southern. How many of us don't want to see the picture to the right anymore this spring? Unless it just, it melts in about 2 hours the next afternoon. This is an East River shot, but then also one that's a little closer to our home is the photo on the left. That is the first depot in Rapid City.
Ooh.
On July 5th, 1886. They pulled up a boxcar, put a platform there, and that was the first agent's office and telegraph office.
Oh, they're all not glad, didn't they?
What we saw here in Oelrichs.
Wow.
Thing about this photo that's kind of interesting, it's taken up at Custer. This is a Burlington crew, but just the manpower and the horsepower and the steam power that it took to build railroads in those days. Wasn't for sissies, I'll tell you that.
No.
The Burlington built that track, which is a high line from Edgemont up to Deadwood, in just a little over 100 days. Now today, shoot, OSHA wouldn't give us a permitting for that. That amount of time. But I mean, just the things that were accomplished by people that wanted to get things done. Rails all over the hills. That's why the line was built through here to get to the northern hills, not only for the business that had derived around in all of our hometowns, you know, the stock, the other business, the passengers and everything else, but up in the northern Black Hills, these tracks you can see, that's up there for mining and logging. And that's a story unto itself. It's just amazing how much work was done up in those hills that can't even be seen anymore. Probably the most famous picture in almost all of South Dakota railroading history is the 3 tiers of tracks at Lead. How many of you ever been in the city park in Lead and looked to the east, kind of over the gun and, the Fish and Gun Club is now? Anyway, if you look right about from where their building is, this is what it looked like in 1901. And that's when the mining and logging and everything was at its absolute zenith. It was just amazing. I always say that thinking about the map of the trains in the northern hills and everything else looked like a bowl of spaghetti. It really did. They were up every gulch, up on every divide, everything else. Wherever there was a mine or a logging camp or whatever. Not quite Hermosa or Oelrichs, but this looks a lot like what it would have been during World War I when our troops were going off to war and we're loading at each one of our small town depots. We just happened to find this in a collection up in Belfouche one time, and so representative of what it looked like during World War I out here. This gets us a little closer. A lot of you have seen the photo that was sold, I believe, last year at this event of the depot and I think the rear of a passenger car or whatever of the depot down here. Well, this happened to be in Rapid City in 1920. The train on the right is the train that would have come up from Chadron here to Rapid and then interchanged with the train on the left, which was the Chicago to Deadwood train. And you can see all the interaction between crews unloading mail, log, baggage, and everything else, and in back of the steam there. So that's what happened in Rapid with the train that came up through here, interchanging with the one that went up to Deadwood, and then of course there was a branch line that went to Belfouche and everything else. But a neat shot of what the two trains would look like in Rapid City. This is kind of the thing we think about. I found a collection in Denver probably about 30 years ago of a photographer that took photos up here in the Black Hills, both on the Northwestern and the Burlington, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and then into the 50s. Wow. This happens to be out between Box Elder and Rapid City now. Over on the far left side would be Box Elder Creek and what is Interstate 90 now. So, but this is train number 518 on the Northwestern. It's called Minnesota and Black Hills Express. So it ran from Mankato to the Black Hills. Very representative of the same kind of engines that were used through here on the passenger trains in that same period. Anybody know what road that is on the right-hand side? That is Jackson Boulevard in Rapid City.
Wow.
This is another one of those collection photos that came from Denver. The guy drove up here primarily on weekends. He was a mail carrier. He'd come up here, and this is a train headed west from Rapid, up the old Rapid City Black Hills and Western, the Crouch Line. And there's a lot of stories about the Crouch Line. We could do an entire program on that, and probably will at some point. But it just was a phenomenal little railroad. They called it a short line, but it did everything from take kids up, take them up as far as a place on Rapid Creek, drop them off in the morning, let them go fishing. Then they'd get picked up on the way back. The conductor would flag the engineer. They'd stop, pick up the kids. They had Sunday picnic trains and everything else.
Wow.
I mean, you talk about just an interesting period of time that just was captured by this little Rapid City, Black Hills, and Western. And the Crouch Line, that has an entirely different meaning as far as how it was named as well. So another story for another day. Once again,
more snow.
yeah, we're gonna. My grandpa always liked, these snows that would come on, and 3 days later, it would be melted about the time the calving was done. But I mean, it just the top one is a shot down just west of Whitney, Nebraska, and it was a Northwestern wedge plow. And then the one on the bottom is actually a postcard. The photo was shot, and they made postcards at Wall Drug, and they sold them. And
They're weird.
I'm a railroad geek, so I mean that just tells you all you need to know about me. But I looked at that, and did I see them shoveling snow and getting the line open? No, I saw this was a Baldwin switcher that it was probably about maybe 3-4 months old when this photo was taken, but they were using it to open the line between Rapid City and Pier. So, but yeah, I saw that it was a Baldwin locomotive. Once again, I'm a geek. Only one locomotive was ever named on the Chicago Northwestern Railroad. That was the locomotive that did the first trip out. So, just another one of the neat stories. And once again, the Dakota 400 was another interesting story in the history of railroading out to the Black Hills and through South Dakota. It was the longest route of any of the Chicago and Northwestern 400 trains. And so it was very unique in their whole system. A lot of people ask, when's when's Amtrak going to come to South Dakota?
No.
I tell them, don't hold your breath. Anyway, this is the last passenger train that ran out of Aberdeen to Minneapolis in February of 1969. It was an overnight train, left Aberdeen 2 a.m., got into Minneapolis about 6 o'clock in the morning. Still was a perfect thing to ride if you're going to do business in the cities or conduct any kind of business or whatever. Get on in the evening about 7 o'clock, ride back to Aberdeen, about a 4-hour trip. It was a perfect system at that point. Now, people will ask, when was the last passenger train in South Dakota? That's where we kind of have our claim to fame in Fall River County. The last one ran through Edgemont, Ardmore, and it ran until August of 1969, when it was abolished and they stopped it mid-train.
Oh, wow.
Down in Hemingford. And they made everybody get off.
Oh, dear.
Go in the depot to
Dramatic, aren't we?
Hemingford, and then they bust them onto Billings. So that's how cruel it was. They didn't finish the trip to Billings, they just stopped it right there at Hemingford. So yeah, so Fall River County was on the last route of the last passenger train in South Dakota. A lot of us have been to Hill City, rode the 1880 train. That's another story that just, and I'm absolutely blessed that I'm the curator of the museum there in Hill City next to the 1880 train. But of course that line all now is the Mickelson Trail after 1983 and then south of Custer in 86. This is a picture of one of the Burlington Northern coal trains going from Edgemont up to Lead. This was in 1981, taken by one of the photographers that actually worked on the line. And then of course on the right hand side is the Chief Crazy Horse. That was one of the little engines that was brought to Hill City to start the 1880 train back in 1956. That engine, well, the Burlington engines, those are all scrapped. The little Chief Crazy Horse, that's back down in Colorado where it actually started its career west of Denver. And the only thing you see running here now is the 1880 train. A couple of panoramic shots shot in the 70s, showing two of the, well, the top one going through the Badlands just west of Interior. That is the Milwaukee Railroad that ran as far west as Rapid City. Down below is primarily, it's a grain train, but it also has cement from Rapid City, pulpwood from Whitewood and Hermosa and other places. They called this the land barge. The train out there, the track was getting so bad on the Northwestern in the 70s and early 80s that they could do about 5 miles an hour. And of course, you remember around here, the track in that area was getting a little bit worse too. Speaking of worse, the DM&E was created from some of the old Northwestern lines in the mid-80s.
That little drunk.
This was not used, I did not use a telephoto lens on this. This is just me shooting with my regular camera. And this is down on the Bad River line between Phillip and Fort Pierre.
Wow.
5 locomotives, 104 cars. I definitely stood back over close to my pickup when this train came by because it was rocking and rolling pretty good.
Oh, jeez.
They're going to need those new ties quickly. Thing about it that's interesting, they have perfected it now under the RCP&E. I shouldn't say perfected it, improved it. End of this summer, the track from Colony up north of Belfouche to Rapid, all the way to Mankato and Winona, Minnesota, is all going to be good for 40 miles an hour, except for a few 25-mile-an-hour limits.
Ooh.
It's going to be remarkable, and they'll be hauling unit trains of bentonite and cement out with new locomotives. Now, I hate to break this to you,
Uh-oh.
but guess what? They are not going to upgrade the track other than new ties down this way for a
Of course
couple of
not.
years yet. So, how many of you live right in Metro Oelrichs? You're still going to hear that
Metro.
train at about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's going to be rocking along at about 10 miles an hour, headed for Crawford. But there's still going to be a train running through here. So, anyway, it's just not going to be very fast. 2 more in Fall River County. The one on the left, you probably know if you've been over and went, I can't remember the name of the county or the number of the county road, just west of Smithwick. That was in 1994 when the Northwestern was still running it on a very nice day when you could see Harney Peak and the rest of the hills. And then, of course, something we're going to be losing over at Igloo here sometime this summer, I'm not sure when, but they're going to tear down the old bridge across the railroad tracks in lieu of going through Provo and over to Igloo and over to the development over there. So if you're prone to taking photos, go over and get a photo of that bridge before they tear it down, because it's coming. One story I have to tell about the DM&E. Like I said, I'm a railroad geek. Everybody pretty much knows that. When the DM&E started redoing their locomotives, a lot of them were painted and they were given the names of towns along the line. I gave the one vice president of marketing a grief all the time when I would see him, when I was in Brookings or when he was out here, and I'd say, by golly, when you get that track bought between Rapid and Crawford, I want to see a City of Hermosa locomotive. And he would always go, oh, Rick, just don't even bother me, just get out of my sight. Well, one day I was working in Rapid City. This would have been spring of 1996. They had just bought this line through here they got some new locomotives, and Lynn called me and he said, "What are you doing, Mills?" And I said, "Well, I'm getting ready to go to lunch." He says, "Okay, I want you to do me a favor. Go down to the depot in Rapid, and then call me back when you get back." And I thought, okay. I got down there. Here was this locomotive, the 3832, a beautiful GP 38-3, fresh paint out of Huron, brought out to Rapid, the city of Hermosa. I called him back and I said, "Lynn, I could still smell the Imron paint on it, just like a new car." And he laughed. He says, "Okay, now I never want to hear from you again." That wasn't exactly true, but I'll tell you what. One of the fun things, that locomotive is still in service for the Rapid City Period Eastern. They use it as their switch engine in Huron, but it's been repainted. But you see, it was teamed up with 2 of the Canadian Pacific locomotives at that time, but they never repainted. And whether that was just dumb luck or, well, the railroad god was with me, I guess. Of course, I tell everybody, I'm blessed to be able to do something that I really enjoy and that I've enjoyed for a long time. And that is be the curator at the State Railroad Museum. I get to tell all the stories of the railroaders, the stories of us that have railroaders in our family in the back. Some of us still work for railroads and have a soft spot for them. But I get to be in Hill City and I get to see this kind of stuff happening all the time with the steam that still operates up there. So if you haven't been up to Hill City in a while, they still put on a darn good show. And if you haven't been to our museum yet, just come in and say, "Rick, I was in Oelrichs. I listened to you babble for 20 minutes or so. I want free admission." I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. Here's the colors that you see now coming through Oelrichs, the Rapid City Period Eastern. This is a whole group of them around the turntable at the Roundhouse in Huron. Going to be a lot of changes made there this summer too. So yeah, railroading is still evolving. All of you, you don't realize that it's quite as much of a part of our lives as it still is. But yeah, there's still midnight going through here that they're making kitty litter and lipstick out of. I mean, it's just it's still a very vital part of our economy, and it just isn't quite as visible all the time. But those men and women that are keeping those trains going are doing the same valuable service they've been doing for 150 years or more. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in a lot of things, not only in railroading,
Right.
but in our culture and everything else. We've talked about a few things here today. I've mentioned things like all this hoopla about Amtrak coming through South Dakota in the next year or so. I won't even bore you with that because I think most of you are fairly intelligent people, except for the ones that still work for the railroad. But that's another story. It's just there's so many things that the railroad still does. There are so many things that the railroad has done for us as a state, and it's all kinds of questions, all kinds of neat things that are going on. Any questions? Yo.
Maybe I missed it, but when you were showing the slides, the photographer from Denver came up and stuff. I didn't get his name.
Yeah, his name was Otto Perry.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, Otto Perry, like I said, he worked for the Postal Service in Denver for about 40 years. His, and to his wife's, probably disdain, he would come up here and go travel around on weekends and shoot train pictures. All the way from California. He was in Pennsylvania for a while. But on short weekends when he just wanted to take a couple of days off, he'd come up to the hills. And he was actually one of the ones that pretty much documented the railroads in South Dakota and the Black Hills especially in the 20s, 30s, and 40s where we don't have a lot of photos otherwise. And we printed a book several years ago up at the museum using 60 of his images, and then we did a very similar thing to what Paul Horsted did. We went out and reshot those photos in the same spot where there were still trains running. So on both Vienna and Northwestern.
I've seen some of those Paul Horsted's.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Another guy who was really important to documenting railroads statewide was a guy named R.C. Lathrop.
R.C.
Did you know him? Did you know
I knew R.C., yeah. Bob was a tremendous gentleman. He worked for Milwaukee and the BN. The majority of his collection of photos are now in the state archives in here. We have quite a few of them in the museum in Hill City, but he documented the era of the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, and he was very instrumental in working with Governor Janklow and getting a lot of the track purchased in eastern South Dakota when Milwaukee was abandoning it back in the early 80s. Yeah, I knew Bob. He was a great guy. Anybody else?
Got a quick couple of questions. So when they were putting the track through here, how many, I heard that it was a mile a day laying track. Is that?
I would say that probably was a pretty good average, but there is no tried and true record of how much was laid every day that I've ever found. Because the Northwestern kept all of its, first off, the Elkhorn, who would have laid the track, all of their records went to Omaha and Missouri Valley, then would have eventually gone to Chicago. Some of it ended up in Chadron, and when they tore down the offices in Chadron in '89, I was able to get some of that, but here's the disgusting part. They told me I could have all the records that I could haul in my pickup.
Oh.
But they gave me 4 hours to get to Chadron and pick up everything. By the time I got down there, they literally had taken out, the one guy said, about 20 or 30 oak filing cabinets.
Oh,
And they
that's
had
just
run over
mean.
them out at the Chadron dump.
Well, don't visit to the dump now.
I got the majority of stuff out of Bell and Rapid. By the time I got to Chadron, it was pretty much gone.
Okay, one last question. Somebody asked me to ask. So, was there a lumber mill around here that actually made the ties, or?
If there was a lumber mill that ran here in Oelrichs or in Fall River County, on this end of the county, I should say, I am not aware of it. The Chadron, originally this was called the Black Hills Division of the Chicago Northwestern. It ran all the way out to Riverton, Wyoming. They had a plant out at Riverton where they would actually cut the ties, float them down the Wind River, and then take them to this tie plant that was about 10 miles this side of Riverton. They treated them there, and then they would haul them back this way. Before that, all of the treated ties, if there were a lot of treated ties, a lot of times there weren't. They never really got into creosoting ties until the 1890s or so. You still go out here on the track in a few places, and you can still find, and I kid you not, I've taken pictures of them, cottonwood ties that they pulled out of the draws and stuff, just enough to get by. And in fact, I've got one at home. When they took it out, I went out and, I paid my brother in beer to help me haul it and put it in. Anyway, but as far as one right here, I don't think so. They may have treated some in Chad. Anybody else? Well, this has been fun, and sometime I'll come down and we'll do it again, or else come see me in Hill City.
I kind of forgot on our introductions and stuff. Our local